so much a binary distinction between good and bad, as Bryn was speaking about, but this sense that there is good in the created world. You know, the incarnation of God in Christ is the blessing, if you will, of the good. Of the created world. And so I think the tension is a bit more difficult, that like the material world is both light and shadow. You know, it has its gifts and its blessings, but it also has its distractions and its sinfulness. And how one navigates that is part of the tension and the struggle. And so my response to what you're saying is to just be careful not for us to fall too much into a dualism, which has been which has been a sin within Christianity. I think that's my own personal opinion, that has created a lot of problems in a lot of different ways. So, for example, I quoted St. Augustine. Well, St. Augustine is also very well known within Christian circles for being very strongly against or seeing the flesh as a source of sin. And so a lot of our sexual teachings, sexual morality teachings, we often blame on Augustine because of the duality that he created. And it has caused a lot of pain and a lot of suffering in the Christian tradition. So I think there's something definitely to what you said, but it also has to be nuanced a little bit.
Yeah, I think that's a really interesting question when it comes down to, you know, not only the people in our lives, but the people around us, and how do they choose to deal with things. And some people are not going to make the emotionally mature, fully formed, rational argument that they would have if they, you know, had 2 days of full prep for this conversation or something like that. Some things in the moment are just horrible. And so when it comes to other people and how they handle their internal conflict, a lot of it does come down to, one, what is their, like, how do they live with it? How do they justify it, and what it makes it possible for them to stay there? And do they choose to move on? And do you choose to be part of that? Do you want to be part of that? Or are you someone who, for whatever reason, has to distance yourself, depending on what the nature of that conflict is? I think that it can be painful, but sometimes, you know, you can't beg someone to be part of your life, you can't beg someone to be on the journey with you. If they don't want to be there, they won't. And so I think that there's a certain level of, like, always invite people on the journey, but if they don't come, okay, that sucks, I'll see you later. You know? And if they choose to show up later, amazing. Like, always be welcoming and always be ready, but sometimes people just don't want it. And it's like, okay, and then there's a consequence of you don't feel as strongly towards them, you don't feel as positive, but they're still part of the group, you know? So it's, again, like you said, there's nuance in there, as well as personal responsibility between both of you to protect yourselves and to wonder why you're responding in the way, you know?
Yeah, it's a very interesting question. I think as an individual, we have got these two dimensions, material dimension and spiritual dimension. You see, sometimes this material dimension, material world, that is luxury, enjoyment, pleasure. Yes, we all need that, but we have to keep in mind that that is only transitional, temporary, short-term in nature. What we get through this materialistic attitude. But what we get through spirituality, that brings inner peace, and that is everlasting. But again, it depends on individuals. I think a balanced approach between the material world and the spiritual aspect, I think, is the best way. There are words in the Holy Quran, Hal Jadaul Ihsane Illal Ihsan. For a good deed, there is nothing but good reward. And that is what I think one should try to do. Whatever good you can do to yourself or to others or to institutions, or to the society, that will bring happiness to you or to your children, because that's the promise of the God. Al-Jazaa'ul Ihsan illa Ihsan. It's the most powerful word in the Holy Quran in Surah Al-Rahman, that for a good deed there is nothing but good reward.
We have time for just one more question, and if you, we will have a nutrition break after that question, and do feel free to interact with our speakers. So the next question, if anybody has.
Thank you. My question is to Mr. Brad. So you briefly touched upon the concept of like, everything happens for a reason. I'm not sure I got it right. You said like you don't believe that, and in traditional all religion and ideology, we believe in karma. Especially in Hindu religion, we really believe in karma, that you do something good, that will come to you as good. So can you explain that a little bit?
Oh, was that to me?
Yeah.
Oh, sorry. Okay.
You said you don't believe that everything happens for a reason.
Mhm.
You don't believe that.
So I believe that there is cause and effect. I believe that there are things that happen that are just kind of circumstance. I don't believe that there is necessarily a even return of good and bad in the way that we do things. If we did, mules would be the wealthiest people in the whole world because of how much work they put in. And I think you have to believe in the good. You have to strive to find it. But sometimes it just doesn't return. You can be the kindest, nicest being in the whole world, and still things are bad, or people treat you poorly, or you're doing everything that you possibly can, and still it is a struggle. I don't think that struggling is. There are some folks who find struggle to be a shrivening of the soul. It's a way for us to kind of know ourselves, because by going through this hardship, now we know more about who we are. And I think that has value. Yes, absolutely. Every interaction has value. Every positive and negative has some level of influence on us. But for me, in my pantheistic kind of way, there is no divine reward or punishment, but that which we seek for ourselves. So it is about coming from a very, very small community. If you're not the one throwing the parties won't happen. So it's about understanding that, sometimes you put in a whole bunch of work and nothing comes of it, and sometimes the thing that you thought was going to be a one-off turns into a repeat. So that's how I relate to it, is that you have to keep trying, because it still matters. It still matters that you did the good thing. There's a story about a little boy on a beach after a storm. This huge storm comes in and he washes up a bunch of starfish up on the shore. And this man walking on the shore sees a little boy picking up these starfish. And there's thousands, millions of starfish on the shore. The little boy picks up the starfish and he throws it back. And he picks up another one and he throws it back. And the old man watches him for a little bit, and then he goes, "Little boy, you know this is pointless, right? You're never going to be able to save all of these starfish. There's so many starfish on the shore. How could you, why are you doing this?" And the little boy just looks at him and says, "It matters to this one." And he throws another starfish back. "And it matters to this one." And so that is where I find my relationship to good deeds and putting it into the world, is that it matters to that one, even if it isn't necessarily a karma-based relationship kind of thing. But thank you very much for your question.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you to the three speakers of the morning session for an excellent presentation. We will now break for 30 minutes. We have a nutrition break. Feel free to interact with the speakers, and we will reconvene in 30 minutes for the second session. Thank you very much.